Okay, today we're going to read some more, hopefully the rest of The New Adventures of Mary Kate and Ashley, The Case of the Surprise Call. Chapter 5, The Giant Flying Bunny. Thud, thud, thud. We have to get downstairs, Ashley said. We might be able to solve this mystery right now. She jumped to her feet and raced to the library door. I was right behind her. Thud, thud, thud. I followed Ashley out into the hall. It was really dark. Ashley, I'll get our flashlights. Wait here. I ran back into the library, pulled our flashlights out of our backpacks, and raced out the door. We switched on our flashlights. Then we tiptoed over the staircase and started down. Ashley paused at the bottom of the stairs. Which way should we go? She whispered. I listened for the next thud, but the huge castle was silent. But that didn't mean whoever made the noises wasn't still inside, watching us. I guess we should just start checking rooms, I whispered. I'll go left, you go right, Ashley said. I nodded. I crept down the hall to the first door. I pressed my ear against it. I didn't hear anything. I opened it a crack and peered inside. Empty, totally empty. There wasn't even any furniture. One door down, about 1 million to go, I thought. The clubhouse is huge. I inched my way over to the next door. My back felt itchy. I couldn't stop imagining that someone was watching every move I made. I took a deep breath and reached for the doorknob. Mary Kate, Ashley shouted, come quick. I spun around and raced toward the sound of Ashley's voice. My heart was pounding like crazy against my ribs. Where are you? I yelled. Dining room, she called back. I raced down the hall and burst into the room. I saw Ashley staring at black footprints on the floor. Enormous footprints. Each one was bigger than my head. I did a quick check of the room. I wanted to make sure that whatever made the footprints wasn't still around. What could have made these? Ashley asked. Some kind of animal, I answered. A giant animal. I bent down to get a closer look. Each paw print was divided into round sections, sort of like the pads on the bottom of a dog's foot. But these prints were more oval-shaped. I stood up and followed the trail of paw prints across the floor. Ashley, I gulped. Look where the paw prints go. Ashley's glance followed the paw prints as they continued up the wall and straight across the ceiling. This doesn't make any sense, I said. What kind of animal can walk on the ceiling? I don't know, Ashley said, but I'll bet there's a book on animal tracks in the library. I'll go upstairs and look. I'll be right back. Be careful, I said. Whatever made these tracks might still be in the clubhouse. Ashley came back a few minutes later with a book. We flipped through the pages, looking back and forth from the drawings in the book to the huge tracks. The paw prints are as big as elephant tracks, Ashley said, but they don't look like elephant tracks at all. Keep going, I said. Remember that the tracks have to be made by something that can walk across the ceiling. They don't match tiger tracks either, Ashley said, or wolf tracks, or any kind of bird tracks, and they don't match gorilla tracks, or deer tracks, or armadillo tracks. Ashley turned another page in the book. That's it, I exclaimed, staring at the page. That's a match. But it can't be, Ashley said, frowning. She studied the page. Why? I asked. What kind of animal is that? It's a bunny, she said. A bunny? I thought. How could a bunny have made these giant paw prints, or walked up the wall and across the ceiling? The only bunny that could have made these tracks is a giant bunny. I shook my head, confused. Yeah, Ashley answered. She glanced at the paw prints on the ceiling. A giant flying bunny. Singing dragons and giant flying bunnies. The clues in this case made no sense. The phone rang. Ashley and I stared at each other. Do you think that's our mystery caller? I asked her. Let's find out, she said. We ran into the hallway and picked up the phone. Detective headquarters, I said, holding my breath. Ashley leaned in close so she could listen. The caller didn't say anything. Hello, I said again. Hello? Who is this? That's the surprise, the high squeaky voice answered. Then the phone went dead. Chapter 6. The countdown begins. I hung up the phone. The surprise will be on the caller when we figure out who it is, I announced. Yeah, Ashley said. Let's take a closer look at those paw prints. Maybe there's a clue somewhere. We headed back to the dining room. That's when we noticed there were some faint paw prints on the hallway walls, too. In the dining room, I bent down really close to the paw prints. I brushed my finger across one of them. I never touched a giant flying bunny's paw print before. Ashley, it's wet, I said. I stared at my finger. There was a smudge on the tip. Ashley bent down and leaned really close to the paw prints. She sniffed it. It's paint, she said. Someone painted these on. Weird, I said, frowning. Really weird, Ashley agreed. Let's wash these prints off the walls and ceiling, I said. Great Grandma Olive has to decorate in here tomorrow morning. Yeah, Ashley said. Then we can go back to the library and try to get some sleep. We'll set our alarm clock for dawn and see if that singing dragon code did mean something. We nodded and we got to work. By the time we got back to the library, we were both really tired. We each curled up on one of the sofas. Mary Kate, Ashley said, we have to solve this case by tomorrow night. We told Great Grandma Olive we could do it. I know, I said, but we have all day tomorrow. That's true, Ashley said. We'll figure out what these strange clues mean and solve the case by sundown. We had to, or it would be our fault that Great Grandma Olive didn't win the Detective of the Year award. Should we tell Great Grandma Olive that nothing happened at dawn? I asked Ashley the next morning. I don't think so, she replied as we headed downstairs. I don't think we should tell her about the bunny tracks either, or that we got another weird phone call. Why? I asked. We could use her help. I know, Ashley said, but she might worry that we're no closer to solving the case than we were yesterday. Ashley is right, I thought. We can't let Great Grandma Olive know how worried we are. She has her own case to think about. We found Great Grandma Olive in the dining room. She was spreading a huge tablecloth on the long wood table. It was decorated with tiny magnifying glasses. I looked around the room. No one would ever suspect there were giant bunny paw prints all over this room last night. Henrietta left some brochures for you to check out, Ashley told Great Grandma Olive. Ashley and I promised we'd make you look at them, I said. I must do that, Great Grandma Olive said. Henrietta will be so disappointed if we don't go on our vacation. Baby and Bobby came over last night too, Ashley added. They dropped off some decorating sketches for you to look at. Great Grandma Olive shook her head. I know they're just trying to be nice, but everyone thought they did a terrible job on last year's decorations. I wouldn't want them to ever know that, but I can't let them do it again. Have you three detectives solved the big mystery in the library yet? A loud voice asked. Zachary Ogden marched into the dining room. You know a good detective doesn't discuss his or her cases with anyone, Zachary, Great Grandma Olive said. She winked at me and Ashley. I smiled. That was one of the first things Great Grandma Olive taught us about being detectives. I'm looking forward to having that award all to myself, Zachary said with a sneaky smile. You're here awfully early, Zachary, Great Grandma Olive commented. I'm doing some research on the computer, he said, then left the room. We helped Great Grandma Olive hang the Detective of the Year award banner on the wall. Then we taped cardboard magnifying glasses all over the room. After we finished decorating, we looked around the dining room. Looks great, girls, Great Grandma Olive said. Thanks for all your help. No problem, I said. Maybe you could help us with something. Sure, what is it? She asked. Do you have a list of all the detectives who use the clubhouse? I asked. Yes, she said. I'll print out a copy of our member list for you. It has their names, addresses, and phone numbers. Great, Ashley said. We need it for our investigation. Just let me go freshen up first. I'm off to interview a suspect in my big case. I'll get you that list before I go." We watched Great-Grandma Olive leave the room. She looked calm, as if she had faith that we would solve the case. "Okay," I said to Ashley. "We need to figure out the motive. Maybe that will help us narrow down our suspects." Motive is one of the words Great-Grandma Olive taught us. It means a person's reasons for doing something. "Right," Ashley responded. "Why would one of the detectives destroy the detective clubhouse?" "Maybe one of the detectives is trying to stop the banquet," I said. "Maybe that person thinks he or she should win the award, not Great-Grandma Olive or Zachary." Ashley nodded. "That would be a good motive for someone wrecking the dining room," she said. "This is where the banquet is going to be held. But what about messing up the library? That wouldn't stop the banquet." "True," I said, thinking hard. "Do you think—" I began, but I was interrupted by a scream, a long, shrill scream. "That was Great-Grandma Olive!" I yelled. Chapter 7, Crazy Clues. Ashley and I raced toward the bathroom. We burst through the open door. "What's wrong?" Ashley cried. "I'm sorry I scared you," Great-Grandma Olive said. She sounded like her usual calm self. "Just take a look in the sink and try not to scream like I did." I peered into the sink. It was filled with thick purple goo. "What is that?" Ashley squealed. Her nose was all wrinkled up, like she smelled something rotten. But nothing smelled rotten in the bathroom. Something smelled sweet, like grapes. No, not grapes. "It's Jell-O!" I exclaimed. "It's just grape Jell-O." Grape. I pointed to the empty box in the trash basket. "I wish I could stay and deal with this," Great-Grandma Olive said, "but I'm already running late. I'll go get that list you need." She hurried away, then came back with 2 sheets of paper. "Here you go," she said, handing Ashley the list. "I'd better run. I'll see you later." Ashley folded up the list and put it in her pocket. Then she pulled out her detective notebook. She added, "Jell-O in sink," under the clues heading. "You think the Jell-O is definitely part of our case?" I asked. "Our suspect has been wrecking the clubhouse room by room," Ashley said. "Jell-O in the sink seems to go with painted bunny paw prints in the dining room and all the weird stuff that was done to the library." "Let's make a list of everyone who is in the clubhouse right now," I suggested. "We need to know who could have slipped in here and made the Jell-O." "Whoever we're after could have done this last night," Ashley answered. "We haven't been in this bathroom since we found the paw prints at midnight." "You're right," I said. "There's no reason to think the person who did this is in the clubhouse right now." "So what do—" I began. I stopped talking. I noticed Baby and Bobby standing in the doorway listening to us. Their eyes were locked on the sink. "Wow!" Bobby exclaimed. "Double wow," Baby said. "Bunny paw prints in the dining room? And now Jell-O in the sink?" Bobby added. "We're sorry for listening in, but we didn't want to interrupt your case discussion," Baby finished. "We saw your great-grandmother on her way out," Bobby said. "She told us she liked our decorating sketches," Baby added. "But that she had the decorating all under control," Bobby announced. "It's too bad," Baby said with a sigh. "We really wanted to be in charge of decorating again this year," Bobby finished. "Oh well. We'd better get home," Baby said. "We're working on a really big case," Bobby exclaimed. They smiled at us and then left. Ashley and I went into the library to discuss our case in private. We didn't want anyone to overhear us. All of the detectives were possible suspects. "Okay, back to figuring out a motive," Ashley said. "Why would someone destroy the library? Leave a code about a singing dragon? Paint bunny paw prints in the dining room? Make Jell-O in the sink? Call and say that Great-Grandma Olive had to take the case?" "I don't know," I said. Me either, Ashley responded. Maybe we should try to figure out what all those things have in common, I suggested. Great idea, Ashley said. That might tell us something about the clues. We both thought hard. Nothing, I said. Those things have absolutely nothing in common that I can think of. Yeah, Ashley agreed. Nothing. Wait a minute, I exclaimed, jumping up from the sofa. That's it. Those things have nothing in common. I know, we just agreed to that, Ashley said. But that's the big clue, I said. The clues have nothing in common. But what does that mean? Ashley said, frowning. It means that someone is trying very, very hard to confuse us, I exclaimed. Mary-Kate, that's it, Ashley cried. That's what? I asked, confused. You just figured out the motive, Ashley exclaimed, and I just figured out who suspect number 1 is. Chapter 8. Purple goo equals suspect number 1. Zachary Ogden is our first suspect, Ashley announced. I don't get it, I said. What motive does Zachary have? He's trying to confuse us, that's all. That's his motive, Ashley explained. Right, I cried, because he wants the Detective of the Year award all to himself. He destroyed the library, then he called and demanded Great-Grandma Olive take the case, and then he had the perfect excuse to make that bet with her. So Zachary created a case that makes no sense at all, Ashley said. A case he's sure will never solve. That way, Great-Grandma Olive will lose the bet. Ashley flipped open her notebook. It makes sense, she said, but we need proof. I jumped up and headed for the door. Where are you going? Ashley asked. I have a plan, I said, but to make it work, I need to get some of that purple Jell-O from the sink. About an hour later, Ashley and I stood on Zachary's front porch. He lived just a few blocks away from detective headquarters. Remember to watch Zachary's face when I show him the Jell-O, I told Ashley. That was my plan. I wanted to observe Zachary's reaction when he saw the Jell-O. I hoped he might do something to give himself away. I'll remember, Ashley promised, but you have to remember that even if he looks really guilty, it isn't real proof. I know, I answered. This is just a place to start our investigation. I stuck the jar of Jell-O behind my back. Then I rang Zachary's doorbell. Ding dong. Zachary swung open the door. He raised his eyebrows when he saw me and Ashley. It's the junior detectives, he said. We need your help, Ashley said. We have a sample of some kind of goo. We thought you might be able to tell us what it is. Everyone at detective headquarters told us how smart you are, I added. Zachary's chest puffed way out. Come on in, he said. I'd be happy to give you my expert opinion. Zachary led the way into the living room. Ashley and I sat down on the couch. Let me see Zachary began. A ringing telephone interrupted him. Be right back, he said. He hurried out of the room. Look over there, Ashley whispered. She jerked her chin toward a framed photograph on top of the TV. I leaned forward and studied it. It was of 2 people dressed up as bunnies. Bunnies! I checked out their feet. Those feet looked about the right size to make the tracks we found, I whispered back. Nice picture, isn't it? Zachary asked. I gave a little squeak. I didn't hear him come back in the room. Really nice, Ashley said. That was taken at the Detectives Club last Halloween party, Zachary told us. I was sure I was going to win the trophy for best costume. His voice got louder. But then some fool showed up in the same costume, and we tied for first place. I know I got mine first. It wasn't fair. Who was in the other bunny costume? I asked. I don't remember who that was, he muttered. Why don't you show me that goo? Here it is. I slowly pulled the jar of Jell-O out from behind my back. I stared at Zachary. I was afraid to blink. I didn't want to miss the expression on his face when he realized the goo was grape Jell-O. Zachary unscrewed the jar. He brought it to his nose and took a tiny sniff. "Smells like grape jam," he said. He took a little spoonful of the Jell-O and tasted it. "Just as I thought, it's—" Zachary didn't finish his sentence. "Excuse me for a moment," he mumbled. "I'll be right back." He thrust the Jell-O back at me. Then he rushed out of the room. I turned to Ashley. "Did you see that? He knows we're on to him. And he has a bunny suit. He's our bad guy." Chapter 9. Caught You. "Don't start jumping to conclusions, Mary-Kate," Ashley warned. "We need proof before we—" She stopped in mid-sentence. Zachary hurried back into the room with a washcloth pressed against his forehead. There were bright red splotches all over his face and neck. He sat down in the big brown chair next to the couch. "I can tell you what that goo is, girls. I thought it was grape jelly, but it's not. It's grape Jell-O," he said. "I'm terribly, terribly allergic to it." "Uh-oh. Do you need us to call a doctor?" I asked. "I feel terrible." Zachary lightly patted his face with the cloth. "No, I'll be fine," he said. "I just want to go lie down for a while." "Okay," Ashley said. "We're sorry about the Jell-O." "Really sorry," I added. "There's no way you could have known," Zachary answered. "At least I was able to tell you what your goo is." "Yeah," I said. "Thanks." "Thanks," Ashley repeated. We hurried out the door. "We're back to 0 suspects," I said. "Maybe," Ashley said. "I doubt someone who's allergic to grape Jell-O would ever eat it knowingly, but he might have done it just to throw us off." "That's true," I said. "Let's not cross him off our list just yet." "We do have a great new clue," Ashley said. "The bunny costume from that photo in Zachary's house." "We have to find out which detective was in the other bunny costume," I said. He or she used the big bunny feet to make the paw prints." Ashley pulled the list of the detectives' names and addresses out of her pocket. "We have a lot of people to talk to," she said, looking at the list. "There are 52 names here." "What's the first name on the list?" I asked. "Baby Butterworth," Ashley answered. "I can think of a motive for her and Bobby," I exclaimed. "They really, really wanted to do the decorating for the banquet. But Great-Grandma Olive was chosen this year." "You're brilliant, Mary-Kate," Ashley said. She gave me a high five. "Baby and Bobby probably wanted to give Great-Grandma Olive an impossible case. That way she would be too busy to do the decorating." "Yeah, but Great-Grandma Olive kept saying she could handle the decorating, so they had to make the case harder and harder," I said. "Plus, Baby and Bobby have been at the clubhouse every time something strange happened," Ashley reminded me. Ashley gave a little bounce on her toes. "Next stop, Baby and Bobby's," she cried. "This is it. 24 Maple Drive," Ashley said. The 2-story house was painted pink with orange trim. It almost hurt my eyes to look at the house, but I liked the colors. Ashley and I hurried up the front walk. Pink and orange polka dots were painted on it all the way to the door. Whoa, that sounds kind of crazy. I reached out and rang the doorbell. Ding dong. It made a funny sound. Oh, didn't do a ding dong, like a bird chirping. Like you can hear the birds chirping out here. No one answered. "I guess they aren't home," Ashley said. We started back down the walk. "That code you came up with was so clever," I heard someone say. I recognized the voice. It was Baby talking. I grabbed Ashley by the arm, put my finger to my lips to signal we had to be real quiet. Then I led the way over to the bright red gate at the side of the house. I peeked through a crack in the gate. I could see Baby and Bobby standing in the backyard. No, those bunny paw prints you painted, that was clever," Bobby said. I pulled my mini tape recorder out of my pocket. I clicked it on. In 1 minute, we would have the evidence we needed to close the case. "You know what was really clever?" Baby asked. "The way we mixed up that batch of Jell-O in the sink." I grinned at Ashley. She gave me the thumbs up. Then the back gate swung open and Baby and Bobby pranced out. "Oh no!" Baby and Bobby cried at the same time when they saw us. "The trench coat twins," Baby said. "Caught us," Bobby finished. Chapter 10. Who's That Bunny? "We got it all on tape," I shouted, holding up my mini tape recorder. "Case closed." You think, Bobby exclaimed, "that we did all the horrible things at the detective clubhouse," Bobby finished. "But we didn't." Ashley planted her hands on her hips. "We heard you say you painted the bunny paw prints. We heard you say you made the jello." No, you just caught us trying to," Baby began. "Solve the case," Bobby continued. Your great-grandma told us that it helps to pretend that you are the suspect you are looking for." Baby picked up where her sister left off. Ashley's eyes narrowed as she studied Baby and Bobby. "But it's not your case," she reminded them. "Why would you be trying to solve it?" Good question, I thought. Ashley is so logical. That's one of the things that makes her a great partner. "We wanted to help your great-grandma because," Bobby began to explain. "We want her to win the award," Baby said. "She's a great detective and a great person, but Zachary is just a great detective," Bobby finished. "He's not willing to help out club members the way your great-grandma does." Ashley and I had to smile at that, but I still didn't know what to think. Baby and Bobby sounded as if they were telling the truth, and Great-Grandma Olive did have a lot of interesting ways of working on a case. Maybe she did give them the idea of acting like the suspect they were looking for. "Maybe you could help us out with something," Ashley said. "We saw a picture in Zachary Ogden's house. It was of two people in bunny costumes at the Detective Club Halloween party. We know Zachary was one of the people. Do you know who the other one was?" "Whoever it was tied with Zachary for best costume," Baby said. "And we should have won," Bobby added. "We made our costumes. We were strawberry ice cream cones. The bunny costumes were store-bought." "But do you know who was wearing it?" I asked. Baby and Bobby both shrugged. "We're sorry," Bobby said, "but we can't remember," Baby added. "How about the store?" I asked. "Can you remember what store the costumes came from?" "The Darling," Baby said. Dress-up shop," Bobby concluded. "Welcome to the Darling dress-up shop," a short blonde woman said. "I'm Tina Hodges, the owner. What can I do for you?" "We're trying to track down two people who bought bunny costumes from you last Halloween," I answered. "I should still have the sales receipts," Tina said. "I save everything." She reached under the counter and pulled out a thick black binder. "Halloween, Halloween," she mumbled. She flipped through the mass of papers stuffed into the binder. "Found Halloween," Tina said. "Now I just have to find Bunny. Bunny, Bunny, Bunny." If Tina could tell us who bought the second bunny outfit, our case would be practically closed, and Zachary could forget about hogging the Detective of the Year award. "Got it," Tina said. "I sold 5 bunny costumes last Halloween. I have the receipts for all of them right here." "Were all 5 costumes adult size?" Ashley asked. Tina checked the receipts. "Only 2. One was sold to Zachary Ogden. I remember that because he returned his the day after Halloween. Of all the nerve." I looked at Ashley. If Zachary returned his costume, that meant he couldn't have made those bunny tracks. We had to rule him out now. And that meant the other person was definitely who we were after. "Do you know who the other person was?" Ashley asked. "Let's see," Tina said, flipping through the receipts. I felt like grabbing the receipts out of Tina's hands. I had to know the other name, but I forced myself to stay still. Tina shook her head. "Sorry, the top of the receipt, the part with the name, got torn off." "Oh no," I exclaimed. "What were we going to do?" Time was running out. The banquet was just 2 hours away. I picked up the receipt and studied it. "I know how we can find out who this belongs to," I said. "How?" Ashley asked. "We could just go to this address," I replied, pointing to the receipt. It's dangerous, Ashley said. Yeah, but it's fast, I argued, and we need fast or we'll never, excuse me, solve this case in time. Chapter 11, Mystery House. Here we are, I said, staring at the small brick house. I double-checked the address on the receipt. Yes, this nice-looking house with all the flowers in the front yard was definitely the right one. Ashley didn't move toward the house. Neither did I. Okay, I'll knock on the door, I said, and when we see who answers, we'll make up some kind of story about why we're here. We have to try to get inside. Ashley nodded. Yeah, we have to find the bunny suit and check the feet. If they have paint on the bottom, case closed. I took a deep breath and headed across the lawn to the house. Ashley followed right behind me. The door was slightly ajar. I knocked on the door. There was no answer. I knocked harder, really hard, and the door swung open. I put one foot inside. Mary Kate, I'm not sure this is such a great idea, Ashley said. I wasn't sure it was such a great idea either, but time was running out. Hello, I called. Is anyone home? No answer. We'll just take a fast peek in this closet right here, I said to Ashley. I gestured to a closet right by the door. The bunny suit might be right in there. I started to take another step inside. Ashley grabbed the back of my shirt and pulled me to a stop. We have to do this, I protested. The banquet is only an hour and a half away. That's not why I stopped you, she answered. Look at that photo. She pointed to a framed photograph on the foyer wall. 2 people in bunny suits. Well, at least we know this is the right house for sure, I said, staring at the photo. Then I noticed something weird about the photo. The background looked the same, but the bunnies were sitting down in this photo, holding first prize ribbons. In the one at Zach's, the bunnies were standing up. I leaned over really close to study the picture. Ashley? The bunny on the right has some long, dark hair flowing out of the bunny head. Which detectives have long, dark hair? Ashley asked. Let's see, I said, thinking. Great-Grandma Olive has long gray hair. Zach has no hair. Baby and Bobby have bright red hair. And there are a whole bunch of detectives we haven't met yet. We can ask Great-Grandma Olive which detectives have long, dark hair, Ashley said. She's probably at the clubhouse making sure the decorations are perfect. Right, I said. Let's find that bunny suit, and then let's find Great-Grandma Olive. Yeah, Ashley agreed. Once we have the proof and know which detective we're looking for, we can confront him or her at the clubhouse before the banquet begins. I marched over to the hall closet and pulled open the door. The closet was huge. I checked inside. There were a lot of coats hung on a rod, and behind that rod was another one, jammed with clothes. I stepped farther into the closet. It was really dark. I couldn't see very well. I pushed aside something cool and silky. I felt something thick and scratchy. I felt something soft and velvety. Then I felt something furry. I ran my fingers up the furry thing. It seemed to have a head with 2 ears. 2 long, long ears. I found it, I cried. Yes, Ashley exclaimed. We need to get the feet, she said. If there is paint on the bottom, we'll have all the proof we need. I felt around the floor for the furry feet. Where are they? I mumbled. I'll help you look, Ashley called. She stepped into the closet. Click. What was that? I cried. The door shut behind me, Ashley said. We ran over to the door. There was no knob on the inside. I pushed the door, but it didn't budge. We're trapped, I yelled. Chapter 12, The Motive. What are we going to do? I asked Ashley. The banquet is just an hour away. We can't stay trapped in here, or Zachary will get the award. We'd better think of something fast. I thought hard. Aside from breaking down the door, I didn't know what to do, and I didn't think Ashley and I could break down the door, even if we tried. Click. It sounded as if the front door opened. Should we scream? I asked Ashley. It's our only way out, she replied. We have to get out of here so we can win the award for Great Grandma Olive. Help! I screamed. Ashley screamed too. I heard a click. Then the closet door opened. Great Grandma Olive stood there with her mouth hanging open. I expected to find a scarf in here to borrow for the banquet, Great Grandma Olive said to us. Not my great-granddaughters. What are you doing in Henrietta's closet? Henrietta's closet? Ashley and I looked at each other. Both of our mouths were wide open. This is Henrietta's house? I asked. Yes, Great Grandma Olive said. Don't you know whose closet you're in? Ashley and I shook our heads. I don't understand, Great Grandma Olive said. But let's start with why you were in Henrietta's closet. We were looking for this, I said, holding up the bunny costume. The final evidence we needed to prove who did those things to the clubhouse. Ashley and I stepped out of the closet. We told Great Grandma Olive all about the bunny tracks in the dining room, our investigation, and how we ended up in Henrietta's closet. I can't believe it, Great Grandma Olive whispered. I'm sorry, I'm so sorry, a voice said from behind us. Ashley, Great Grandma Olive, and I all spun around. Henrietta stood in the doorway to the house, tears in her eyes. I don't understand, Great Grandma Olive said. It was horrible and selfish of me, Henrietta answered, but I didn't want you to win the Detective of the Year award. Not this year. I didn't get it. Henrietta was Great Grandma Olive's best friend. Why wouldn't she want Great Grandma Olive to win the award? Oh, I get it, Ashley said. If Great Grandma Olive won the award, she would get her picture in the newspapers, and then she'd get lots of new cases. Right, I said, finally understanding. I turned to Henrietta. And then she wouldn't be able to go on vacation with you. Is this true, Henrietta? Great Grandma Olive asked. Henrietta sniffled and nodded. Great Grandma Olive handed her a tissue. You destroyed the library to give Great Grandma Olive a case she couldn't solve, I said. But how did you know Zachary would make the bet? I didn't know, Henrietta said. She turned to Great Grandma Olive. I decided to give you an unsolvable case. I figured you wouldn't accept the award if you had a case you couldn't solve. Then Zachary jumped in and made that bet with you. He helped me with my plan without even realizing it. Henrietta sniffled again. I really didn't want to do anything bad to your great-grandmother, and especially not to the two of you, she explained to me and Ashley. I just really wanted somebody else to win the award. She turned to Great Grandma Olive. I was sure you would win again next year. Henrietta wiped her eyes. It was so silly of me to think there was a case you couldn't solve, especially with the help of the Trenchcoat twins, she said. I owe all three of you a huge apology. Great Grandma Olive squeezed Henrietta's hand and smiled. Henrietta, why were you at the Detective Club's Halloween party anyway? I asked. You're not a detective. That's why we didn't consider you a suspect. I cook all the food and bake all the desserts for the party, she explained. So the detectives always invite me to dress up in a costume and enjoy myself. Now that makes sense, I said. You do make the best chocolate chip cookies in the world. Great Grandma Olive laughed. I looked at my watch. Oh no, I said. We'd better get to the clubhouse and tell everyone the case is solved. The banquet starts in 10 minutes. Chapter 13. And the award goes to... Good evening, fellow detectives, a woman said from the head of the table at the banquet. As you know, I'm Tracy Richmond, this year's banquet planner. Everyone clapped, then got really quiet. As you also know, Tracy continued, this year Olive Olson and Zachary Ogden were to share the Detective of the Year award. But Olive and Zach made a bet, and therefore I'm pleased to announce that the winner of this year's Detective of the Year award is... Everyone stared at Tracy Richmond, waiting to hear who won the bet. Olive Olson, Tracy called out. She solved the case of the clubhouse mystery before the banquet began. She wins the award. Baby and Bobby gave out squeals of delight. Henrietta let out a loud, "Hooray!" But no one cheered harder than Ashley and I did. Great-Grandma Olive walked to the podium at the head of the table. Tracy handed her a big gold trophy. "Being named Detective of the Year is a great honor," Great-Grandma Olive said. "But I didn't solve the mystery at the clubhouse. I don't deserve the award." "You heard her!" Zachary cried, jumping up from his seat. He rushed up to the podium and grabbed the trophy out of Great-Grandma Olive's hands. "I'm the only Detective of the Year this year," he exclaimed, holding the trophy high above his head. Great-Grandma Olive marched right over to Zachary and took the award out of his hand. Then she walked straight over to me and Ashley. She set her big gold trophy down in front of us. "As I was saying," she announced, "I didn't solve the case. My great-granddaughters did. They deserve the award." "But they're just kids!" Zachary yelled. "They're too young to be the detectives of the year. It's not fair." "Oh, pumpkin seeds," Bobby called out. "Slimy pumpkin seeds," Baby said. The Trenchcoat twins solved the case. "So they win the award," Bobby finished. "A bet is a bet." "You two are the real detectives of the year," Great-Grandma Olive said to me and Ashley. Ashley grinned at me. "Congratulations, Detective Olson," she said. "Congratulations, Detective Olson," I answered. Everyone clapped except Zachary. He was sulking. Great-Grandma Olive put her fingers in her mouth and gave a loud whistle. I'm not able to do that, but everyone got quiet. "Will you two handle the new case I got yesterday?" she said to Ashley and me. "I'm going on vacation with my very best friend." The hugest smile I've ever seen broke across Henrietta's face. She's pretty happy. She's going on vacation. Great-Grandma Olive gave me and Ashley a big hug. "Enjoy your trophy," she said. "You did a great job with the case." "Being great detectives," Ashley began, "runs in the family," I finished. And the Trenchcoat twins solved another case. Hope you liked this one, Kaylee. If you did, we got lots more. I'll try to read some more to you.